Hello students, I am Dr. Amir Bhatnagar, working as Senior Research Officer in the Department of Agronomy at GB Pant, University of Agriculture and Technology, Pantnagar, Uttarakhand. Our topic is ill effects of Green Revolution. And we know that Green Revolution was started in our country in 1960 to increase the food production, and there was an increase in cereals, particularly in rice and wheat, and especially in wheat. There was a huge production and we were able to feed our large population. So it was the Green Revolution which was responsible for increasing the food production. तो हमारी कंट्री में जो 60s में फूड प्रोडक्शन बढ़ा वो ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन की वजह से बढ़ा. And that time it was necessary to increase the food production because we were importing the wheat from Australia and US, and there was a huge crisis for wheat. So it was necessary to increase the production. So, but in Green Revolution, we face some problems after some years. तो ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन जो हमने किया उससे प्रोडक्शन तो बढ़ा, लेकिन उसके बाद हमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स कुछ सालों बाद नजर आई. तो व्हाट वर दीज इल इफेक्ट्स ऑफ ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन? सो वी कैन नॉट से दैट ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन वाज नॉट गुड. दैट टाइम इट वाज नेसेसरी एंड नीड ऑफ द आवर टू इंक्रीज द प्रोडक्शन, टू फीड द पॉपुलेशन. उस समय इसकी ज़रूरत थी, लेकिन हमने उन टेक्नोलॉजी को ज़्यादा यूज़ किया, ओवर यूज़ किया, इनडिस्क्रिमिनेट, विदाउट एनी वाइसनेस. तो हमको कुछ इल इफेक्ट्स नज़र आए. तो व्हाट वर द इल इफेक्ट्स ऑफ ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन? तो हमको ये नहीं थिंक होनी चाहिए कि ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन से सब कुछ खराब हो गया. ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन इंक्रीज द प्रोडक्शन, बट ऑन द अदर साइड देयर वर सम इल इफेक्ट्स. एवरी कॉइन हैज टू साइड्स, और वी कैन से एवरीथिंग हैज टू साइड, पॉजिटिव एंड नेगेटिव साइड. पॉजिटिव साइड ऑफ ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन वाज दैट वी इंक्रीज द फूड प्रोडक्शन and were able to feed the population. But on the other side, negative ill effects were observed in the long run. तो long run में हमको कुछ उसके ill effects नजर आए. तो क्या है वो ill effects? What are this negative side of green revolution? Actually, the green revolution was started with the development of the high yielding varieties. So these four factors we can say were responsible to increase the food production. High yielding variety to increase the productivity level, use of fertilizer for nutrient supply, irrigation to supply the soil moisture to increase the food production, and the pesticide, weedicide, insecticide, fungicides to control the disease. So these were the four responsible factor, and the important one that high yielding variety, fertilizer and irrigation. So they increase the production. And the high yielding variety were tremendous variety, and they produce the 2 or 3 times more yield compared to the conventional local varieties. तो ये जो high yielding variety से बहुत तेज़ी से फूड प्रोडक्शन बढ़ा, और wheat की जो high yielding variety आई उससे बहुत wheat प्रोडक्शन हुआ और हम अपनी पॉपुलेशन को इतना फूड प्रोड्यूस करा सके. But with the high yielding variety, what were the problem with the use of fertilizer, with the irrigation? क्या irrigation से कोई प्रॉब्लम हुई? We think that irrigation is good for the crop production, but is there any ill effects of irrigation? Yes, definitely there are some ill effects. तो उसको मैं डिस्कस करूंगा. What are the ill effects of green revolution? In case of high yielding varieties, actually these are the hybrids, and hybrids have narrow genetic base. The narrow genetic base in the sense that they involve only 2 or 3 parents or 4 parents. Okay, single cross hybrid or double cross hybrid or triple cross hybrids, particularly in case of maize. So hybrids involvement of parents is very less. So number of parents are involved in development of hybrids. So that's why the gene pool, some gene for disease, some gene for insect, some gene for quality, some gene for drought resistance, for abiotic stress, for biotic stress. They are a number of genes. But when we make the hybrid, then this gene pool become narrow. So some genes are eliminated. For example, disease resistance gene is eliminated in the hybrid, then it becomes susceptible to disease. Similarly, lack the drought resistance gene, then it cannot survive under drought condition. So these hybrids were narrow genetic base. So that's why they were susceptible to disease, insect, drought, abiotic stress, we can say abiotic stress. So this was the problem. Then these hybrids were released for the high productivity, high production, and the quality. So that's why quality was inferior. So quality was issue. because our aim to increase the production. So focus was on this high productivity. So they produce the high yield, but on the other side, the quality means protein content, carbohydrate content, or mineral content, you can say, was low as compared to conventional variety. So because of this narrow genetic base, susceptible to disease and insects, so we have to apply more pesticide, insecticide और fungicide. तो ये नैरो जेनेटिक बेस होने की वजह से क्या हुआ कि वो डिसीज के लिए ज़्यादा आने लगी और इंसेक्ट ज़्यादा आने लगे, तो उसके लिए फिर हमें क्या करना पड़ा, इंसेक्टिसाइड डालना पड़ा. तो ये देन यूज ऑफ इंसेक्टिसाइड. नाउ दिस यूज ऑफ इंसेक्टिसाइड इज एक्चुअली लिंक्ड विद दिस susceptible to disease and insects. So there are more incidence of disease and insects in hybrids. तो ये पेस्टिसाइड डाला, तो नाउ पेस्टिसाइड प्रॉब्लम. अभी मैं डिस्कस करूंगा पेस्टिसाइड्स के क्या क्या साथ प्रॉब्लम आई. सो दिस वाज द प्रॉब्लम विद द हाई यील्डिंग वैरायटी. सो नैरो जेनेटिक बेस बट क्वालिटी इंफीरियर. देन ये जो हाई यील्डिंग वैरायटीज थी, दीज आर ओनली फॉर 2 or 3 क्रॉप्स, particularly rice and wheat and rice. Wheat, rice, maize, sorghum के hybrids रहे. And but this is cereals, mainly these were the cereals, but pulses were neglected. So there was an increase in cereal production, but reduction in pulse production, reduction in oilseed production. So there was an imbalance in food grain supply. So we were surplus in cereal but deficit in pulse and oilseed. So that's why we imported the pulse and oilseed from other countries. तो ये जो hybrids mainly किसके थे, राइस, व्हीट और मेज के थे, और सॉरगम, पल्मिनेट सीरियल्स के थे. तो इसमें तो हमारा प्रोडक्शन बढ़ा, लेकिन हमारा जो ब्रीडिंग जो ही पल्स और ऑयलसीड के लिए बहुत कम हुई. तो पल्स से के लिए हमें बाहर से इंपोर्ट करना पड़ा, उसके लिए हमारा फिर काफ़ी मनी जो है उस पर एक्सपेंड हुई. सो दिस वर द इल इफेक्ट दैट वी वर डिफिसिट इन पल्स एंड ऑयल सीड. तो वी वर सफिशिएंट इन सीरियल्स बट डेफिशिएंट इन पल्स एंड ऑयल सीड. तो जब पल्स और ऑयल सीड की सप्लाई कम होगी, तो दैट इट इज ओबियस दैट न्यूट्रिशन इज नॉट प्रॉपर. तो मेल न्यूट्रिशन की प्रॉब्लम ज़्यादा है. तो इनके जो प्राइस हुए, द प्राइस इज हाई. So this is the reason that pulse price and oilseed price is high in our country. यही रीजन है कि हमारी कंट्री में पल्स का, दालों का और जो तिलहनी फसलें हैं उनका रेट बहुत ज़्यादा है, क्योंकि हमारा जो फोकस है सारा किस पे रहा, इस पे रहा. तो यहाँ द प्राइस इज बैलेंस्ड, प्राइस इज कंट्रोल्ड, लेकिन वहाँ गया है प्राइस कंट्रोल नहीं है. नाउ इट इज नाउ रिसर्च इज फोकस ऑन पल्स एंड ऑयलसीड. देन दिस हाइब्रिड्स, बिकॉज ऑफ दिस हाइब्रिड्स यूज द राइस व्हीट रोटेशन. This is the problem that because hybrids were available in these 2 crops, so rice wheat rotation become popular. So it created the problem of monoculture. So means cereal. It actually monoculture is growing of same crop year by year. For example, rice. We are growing the rice in every season. Sugarcane every season. That it is called monoculture. But this rice wheat belong to same family, cereal, then it rotation can be considered as a monoculture. So this is a problem of the monoculture, is that the more weeds, persistence, insects, they persist, diseases persist. Weeds, particularly echinoclea, persist in rice, and Felis minor, Chenopodium persist in wheat. So to apply, to control the weeds, we have to apply the herbicides. To control the insect and disease, we have to apply pesticide. Means the use of pesticide increased because number of hybrids were susceptible. Number one, because of hybrids susceptibility, more disease. Then because of monoculture, we have to apply more pesticides. तो अब pesticides की जो है use बढ़ा. Then this was the problem with the high yielding variety. But hybrids were responsible to increase the production. Hybrid की वजह से ही production बढ़ा. अगर hybrids नहीं होते तो इतना प्रोडक्शन नहीं बढ़ता. लेकिन ये उसके कुछ इफेक्ट्स, इल इफेक्ट्स नजर आए. इट मीन्स नाउ ब्रीडिंग हैज टू बी फोकस्ड ऑन दिस रेसिस्टेंस ब्रीडिंग, कि हम उसको सस्टेबिलिटी कम हो जाए, रेसिस्टेंस बढ़े. तो जो ब्रीडिंग है इस समय इसी पे ही है, क्वालिटी एस्पेक्ट एंड द रेसिस्टेंस एस्पेक्ट. देन यूज ऑफ फर्टिलाइजर्स. एक्चुअली दीज हाइब्रिड्स वर रिस्पॉन्सिव फॉर न्यूट्रिएंट एप्लीकेशन. एक्चुअली लोकल वैरायटीज require less input because their productivity is less. But this high yielding variety have high productivity, high biomass production, so definitely more nutrients are required. because of high productivity level. So because that's why we have to apply more synthetic fertilizer, chemical fertilizer like urea, DAP, MOP, zinc sulfate. Number of fertilizers were used because they were response. हाइब्रिड्स क्या आते हैं, जो जितना न्यूट्रिएंट डालेंगे उनकी प्रोडक्टिविटी लेवल बढ़ती है, वो रिस्पॉन्सिव होते हैं, तो उस कारण से फर्टिलाइजर का यूज भी बढ़ा. नाउ द फर्टिलाइजर्स वर केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर्स एंड देयर वाज नो यूज ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक, नो और लिमिटेड, नो और लिमिट, वी कैन से, ये तो नहीं कह सकते लिमिटेड, लिमिटेड यूज ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक मैटर, हैवी रिलायंस ऑन केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर्स. So because of this heavy fertilizers, we are applying only NPK. So focus was only N, P and K. So there was a micronutrient deficiency. Micronutrient deficiency started. This was the problem. Then mainly the focus was on nitrogenous fertilizers. And because of this nitrogenous fertilizer, this fertilizer is subjected to various loss. So leaching. So because of leaching, there is a groundwater pollution, nitrate, groundwater pollution because of nitrate. So it create methemoglobinemia. It is a serious disease, particularly in children. लीचिंग हो जाती है, यूरिया से जो नाइट्रेट बनता है लीच कर जाता है, ग्राउंड वाटर में चलाता है. इस ग्राउंड वाटर को जो हम पीते हैं तो हमारे उसमें हीमोग्लोबिन से ऑक्सीजन के ट्रांसपोर्टेशन को रोक देता है, और ये बहुत सीरियस प्रॉब्लम करता है चिल्ड्रन में. एंड इट इज नोन एज ब्लू बेबी सिंड्रोम. Blue baby syndrome, and it caused the death. शरीर बच्चों का, छोटे बच्चों का शरीर नीला पड़ जाता है और डेथ हो जाती है. इट इज नोन एज ब्लू बेबी सिंड्रोम. सो दिस इज द ग्राउंड वाटर प्रॉब्लम. अनदर denitrification, N2O gas is there, and this is greenhouse gas, and N2O. Then volatilization ammonia gas. So there is change in gaseous composition, and it contributed in green revolution. Then fossil fuel were used. Fossil fuel were used in production of this fertilizers during manufacturing, during transportation. So okay, so CO2 gas emission was increased. So because of denitrification, N2O gas increased, and because of this fossil fuel, CO2 gas emission was more. So this created the environmental pollution. So the fertilizer application lead to fertilizer pollution. So problem of pollution, soil pollution as well as air pollution due to this CO2. So this is the problem with the fertilizer. Then these fertilizer have heavy metals. These are have heavy metals like mercury, etc. Okay. Cadmium. So they cause the soil contamination. We can say soil pollution. So this fertilizer has soil pollution due to heavy metals, air pollution due to CO2, groundwater due to nitrate. So okay, so these are the problem with the fertilizer. It doesn't mean that कि fertilizer effective नहीं है. ऐसा नहीं है कि fertilizer की वजह से हमें नुकसान हो गया. Fertilizer provide the nutrients. But the problem is that we are not using fertilizer judiciously. We are using indiscriminate application. अंधाधुंध application कर रहे हैं. डाल यूरिया डाले जा रहे हैं तो यूरिया डाल रहे हैं, डीएपी डाल रहे हैं तो डीएपी डाल रहे हैं, पोटेशियम दे ही नहीं रहे. तो it cause the nutrient imbalance. Nutrient imbalance. So this nutrient imbalance and all the problems were due to injudicious use, indiscriminate application. So fertilizer are very good if they are used judiciously, but indiscriminate. So the problem was due to indiscriminate use. हमने बिना सोचे समझे जितना मन आ रहा है उतना डाल दे रहे हैं, बिना कैलकुलेट किए हुए. So this is the indiscriminate, बिना किसी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन के कोई भी जो फर्टिलाइजर मिला डाल दिया. So this is the problem with the indiscriminate use of fertilizers. तो ऐसा नहीं कि फर्टिलाइजर अच्छे नहीं है, फर्टिलाइजर अच्छे हैं, यूज इन बैलेंस क्वांटिटी एंड इन कैलकुलेटेड एंड द रिकमेंडेड डोज. अगर ज्यादा डालेंगे तो पोल्यूशन करेंगे. ओके, सो दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम विद द इनडिस्क्रिमिनेट use of fertilizers. So fertilizer alone as such is not culprit. It's indiscriminate use without judicious application. बिना सोचे समझे हम डाल रहे हैं अंधाधुंध, वो प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करता. फर्टिलाइजर एज सच प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट नहीं करते हैं. Then the problem, another problem was with the limited use of organic matter or no use, or in some area almost no use of fertilizer. When crop respond to fertilizer, then farmer started only chemical fertilizer application. They omit the organic matter. उन्होंने organic matter डाला ही नहीं, उनको fertilizer से अच्छी crop नजर आ रही थी. And because of this organic matter, and this organic matter is responsible for all the physical, chemical and biological properties. We know that what is the relevance of this organic matter. Physical aggregation was poor, so that's why there is poor aeration, poor density, poor water holding capacity, susceptibility to erosion because of this reduction in physical property. In chemical properties, poor availability of nutrient, poor CEC, that's why more leaching, less availability of the micronutrients because of no application of organic matter. Then biological properties, less microbial activity, so less decomposition, less degradation of the material. And degradation of the material, whether it is pesticide or organic matter, essentially we apply any pesticide, fungicide, insecticide, it is degraded by microbes. अब हमने क्या pesticides तो डाले हमने, and these pesticides are degraded by microbes in soil, but microbial population is low because we are not using the organic matter. So that's why these pesticide persist in soil. तो ये प्रॉब्लम आई ऑर्गेनिक मैटर न डालने की वजह से. एक तो हम पेस्टिसाइड डाल लेते हैं, उसका डिग्रेडेशन होना सॉइल में जरूरी है, और वो डिग्रेडेशन माइक्रोब्स करते हैं, माइक्रोबियल एक्टिविटी होना जरूरी है, वो माइक्रोबियल एक्टिविटी ऑर्गेनिक मैटर से होती है, वो हमने डाला नहीं. सो दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ लिमिटेड और नो यूज ऑफ. So and the susceptibility to erosion, because this organic matter is responsible for binding of soil particles, so soil become more susceptible to erosion. So soil loss, top soil loss. So this is the problem with the limited or no use of fertilizer. So we see two type of problem in case of fertilizer. Number one, indiscriminate use of fertilizer, number one. Number two, limited or no use of organic matter. Now irrigation. The irrigation is responsible to increase the production. So in rainfed area we cannot increase the production without water, and expansion in irrigation is necessary to increase the cultivated area or to increase the productivity levels. So both are important. But the problem with the irrigation is that canal irrigation was there and the tube well irrigation. In canal irrigation is that there is a canal, suppose it is canal, so there is a seepage of water, and then it raises the water table. तो जो कैनाल इरिगेटेड एरिया होते हैं उनके साइड से पानी सीपेज कर जाता है, वाटर टेबल राइज करता है. नाउ वी थिंक दैट राइजिंग ऑफ टेबल इज वेरी गुड. अब हम सोचेंगे वाटर टेबल ऊपर आ रहा है तो बहुत अच्छा है, बट अप टू ए लेवल, ए क्रिटिकल डेप्थ, दिस वाटर टेबल शुड बी बिलो द रूट जोन. इफ दिस वाटर टेबल कम इनटू द रूट जोन, देन वाटर विल रिमेन, सॉइल विल सैचुरेट इन रूट जोन, देयर विल बी एनारोबिक कंडीशन एंड द प्लांट ग्रोथ विल बी वेरी पुअर. अगर ये वाटर टेबल इतना ऊपर आ गया कि रूट जोन में आ गया तो सॉइल मॉइस्चर रहेगा हमेशा, रूट जोन में एनारोबिक कंडीशन हो जाएगी, वो नहीं करेगा. सेकंड, साल्ट विल नॉट लीज डाउन. सो वाटर टेबल शुड बी एटलीस्ट 2 मीटर बिलो, मतलब कम से कम 2 मीटर नीचे रहे. ये अलग अलग एरिया अलग अलग होता है, लेकिन इतना नीचे रहे कि वो साल्ट क्या करे, लीच कर जाए. नाउ इन कैनाल इरिगेटेड एरिया वाटर टेबल बिकम राइज. सो शैलो वाटर टेबल, दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम. और बिकॉज ऑफ दिस शैलो वाटर टेबल, द प्रॉब्लम इज shallow water table. With the shallow water table, waterlogging in root zone, and as well as poor leaching of salt. And leaching of salt is necessary to maintain the salt balance, because by the irrigation water or by any other source, salts are there, and this salt must be leached down to maintain a balance. Then in tube well irrigation, it is tube well. In tube well irrigation, excessive irrigation, actually this causes excess irrigation, and this tube well actually, suppose the soil surface, so tube well irrigation, they pump the water from deep inside of the soil, deeper layer. Okay, we can say depth of layer. Here salts are present in depth. Now the salts come from the irrigation water with the tube well and accumulate on surface. Now the salts which were present in lower depth now come on the upper surface and increases the salinity. So this is the problem with the salinity. So canal irrigation causes the salinity because of this poor leaching. This tube well irrigation causes the salinity because pumping of water from the deeper layer. जब हम ट्यूबवेल से इरिगेशन करते हैं तो जो नीचे का पानी है, बहुत नीचे 30 फुट 40 फुट 50 फुट जो भी हम ले रहे हैं पानी, पानी में साल्ट है, नीचे जमीन में साल्ट है, वो पानी के साथ साल्ट सारा ऊपर आ जाता है। अब जो साल्ट नीचे था वो सब कहाँ गया, ऊपर आ गया, तो इससे क्या बढ़ेगी, सैलिनिटी बढ़ेगी। तो नाउ दिस सैलिनिटी इज नॉट नेचुरल, दिस सैलिनिटी इज बाय ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी। सो दिस इज कॉल्ड सेकेंडरी सैलिनाइजेशन। So this is the problem with the ill effect, is that secondary salinization increased. Now it would be clear how the canal irrigation and tube well irrigation is responsible for increase in salinity or secondary salinization. It doesn't mean that we have not to apply irrigation. It means that we should be careful. So water management is very, very important part. Careful management is required in irrigation so that salinity is not increased. We have to avoid the secondary salinization. Tube-well irrigation, despite of very good quality, will create or will deposit salt. ट्यूबवेल इरिगेशन पानी चाहे कितना अच्छा क्यों ना हो, उससे साल्ट आएंगे, क्योंकि नीचे जमीन में तो सब साल्ट है ना, रॉक से बनी है, वेदरिंग हुई है, सब साल्ट, और पानी से साल्ट ऊपर आते हैं। तो दैट्स वाई लीचिंग इज मस्ट। तो जहां भी ट्यूबवेल इरिगेटेड एरिया है वहां हमको लीचिंग करनी चाहिए, बंडिंग करके। देयर इज डिफरेंट मेथड। और इन कैनाल इरिगेटेड वाटर वी हैव टू मेंटेन ए वाटर टेबल टू ए क्रिटिकल डेप्थ सो दैट वाटर टेबल इज नॉट shallow. Now the use of pesticide, actually the use of pesticide increased with the hybrids and the monoculture, as discussed early in this lecture. ये hybrid को हमने use किया yielding को, so because of susceptibility disease increased, and then monoculture because hybrids were available for 2 or 3 crops, then we use the same crop rotation, rice wheat. Okay, so that's why there was increase used of these pesticides. So fungicide, herbicides. So because of this herbicides, the problem is that these herbicides were selective herbicides. So they kill the population of a few selected weeds like broadleaf or grassy, and some were not killed. So there was a first dominance. So because of this dominance of some weeds, for example, cypress. Some herbicides kill only grassy weeds and narrow weeds. And cypress is not killed. So that's why in that field cypress problem increases. तो जो हर्बिसाइड होते हैं कुछ ही वीड्स को मारते हैं, सेलेक्टिव होते हैं, तो जो वीड्स नहीं मरते उनकी पॉपुलेशन बढ़ जाती है। सो डोमिनेंस ऑफ सम वीड्स। सेकंड वन इज दी हर्बिसाइड रेसिस्टेंस। तो सम वीड्स आर नॉट किल्ड बाय हर्बिसाइड एप्लीकेशन एंड दे सर्वाइव। मान लीजिए काइनोकुलवा के लिए, या जैसे फेलिस माइनर का बहुत अच्छा एग्जांपल है आइसोप्रोटॉन के लिए। तो जब हमने आइसोप्रोटॉन को अप्लाई किया तो कुछ फेलिस माइनर के प्लांट्स बच गए और वो मल्टीप्लाई करेगा, वो उन्होंने रेजिस्टेंस डेवलप कर ली। तो हर्बिसाइड रेसिस्टेंस वीड्स, दिस वाज द प्रॉब्लम। नाउ वी हैव टू अप्लाई अनदर हर्बिसाइड्स टू कंट्रोल द विच वर लेफ्ट। तो ऐसे वीड्स को किल करने के लिए हमें दूसरे तरह के हर्बिसाइड यूज करने पड़े, हर्बिसाइड रेसिस्टेंस करने के लिए फिर हमें किसी दूसरे तरह के हर्बिसाइड यूज करने पड़े। तो इट लीड टू मोर यूज ऑफ हर्बिसाइड। देन थर्ड वन is that these herbicides reduces the soil microbial population, reduced soil microbial population, because these herbicides applied on soil, pre-emergence herbicides are applied on soil, so then it destroys the population, it has harmful effect. And third one, toxic residue in plants, so toxic food, we can say toxic food. This is the problem with the herbicide. Now the problem with the insecticide and fungicide and other pesticides is the same, except other pesticides is the same, that there is a reduction in microbial population because the pesticide and food contamination, there is toxic residue. So this is the problem with this. So food is not healthy, nutrition is poor. So there are toxic elements in food. So in food chain, in whole food chain, there are toxic elements, particularly of insecticide. Toxic residue are very common because insecticide applied in many times to control the insect and different type of insect. So the major problem is with the insecticide residue and fungicide residue, which are the poison, because these are the poison for the insect. So that's why they are poison for animal, poison for human. So ये सभी के लिए poison है, तो ये food chain में आ गए. So they are creating the problem in the whole biological system. So this is the problem. Another problem with the insecticide and fungicide is that they control all type of insect. So loss of genetic diversity. So they kill the natural predators, parasites and the natural pathogens. So that's why there is an imbalance. Similarly, herbicide also cause all type of plants except crops. So they loss of genetic diversity because of these herbicides. So some plant species are good and have allelopathic effect. So ऐसे herbicide डालने से ऐसे weeds भी हमारे ऐसे beneficial plants भी खत्म हो गए जो हमको एलोपैथिक इफेक्ट्स दे सकते थे फ्यूचर में, तो वो हम पे हुआ. लेकिन मेन लॉस ऑफ जेनेटिक डाइवर्सिटी इज ड्यू टू दिस इंसेक्टिसाइड एंड दिस इंसेक्टिसाइड because of less population of predators and parasite and the pathogen. So these are the ill effects of green revolution we realized in the long run. So it doesn't mean that green revolution is not good. इसका मतलब ये नहीं green revolution अच्छा नहीं था. ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन की वजह से ही हमको इतना फूड प्रोडक्शन मिला, बट देयर आर सम नेगेटिव साइड्स और इल इफेक्ट्स. So these are the still the problem, and research is going on. That's why our focus is on organic farming. So organic farming is the alternative to overcome the ill effects of green revolution. And the main concept of the organic farming is the nutrition, healthy food, healthy life. And this healthy life is due to if there is no toxic residue, it means we are not providing any pesticide, we are not providing any fertilizers. This is the reason that synthetics are not allowed in organic farming. So we face the ill effects of green revolution, that's why there is a need for organic farming. तो जो ill effects है green revolution के, पूरी life disturb हो गई, toxic हो गई, soil contaminate हुआ, air pollution हुआ, तो उसके लिए हमको shift होना पड़ा organic farming पे, क्योंकि organic farming का concept ही यही है, healthy life, healthy plant, ecosystem maintenance, ecosystem stability. So this is the concept of organic concept, holistic concept, soil living concept, and the healthy plant concept. So these four concept और organic farming से ही हम organic farming पे आए हैं, क्योंकि ये हमने ill effects को realize किया है. So these were the ill effects of green revolution. Thank you very much.